Hello, welcome, and thank you for joining me here on my YouTube channel, The Fraud Detective. My name is Jesse Gossman, and as always, it is my mission to bring you real-world fraud investigation scenarios and developing fraud trends straight from the front lines, financial crimes. This week, we're talking about synthetic identities, CPNs, credit privacy numbers, credit profile numbers, secondary credit numbers, whatever you want to call them. They are a fraud, and they're just a fake way to develop a new financial identity, and the fraudsters know it. So I don't know if you've ever checked him out, but you got to check out Brett Johnson. He's the original internet godfather, so dubbed by the Secret Service, turned into a security expert. I joined him on his podcast earlier this week, so check it out. His podcast is Anglerfish, and I think you'll enjoy that conversation. But anyway, I want to take you into how CPNs are cultivated, how to look for them, and really what they do. So for more on that, let's check in with Frank the Fraud Detective.
It was just another typical day in the office for Frank the Fraud Detective and his partner Alex, when suddenly the radio came to life. It was a patrol officer seeking the assistance of a fraud detective for a possible fraud in progress. The officer explained that he had been called to a car dealership who suspected a purchaser was using a stolen identity. However, the officer already checked him out, and it appeared he was who he said he was. Frank and Alex responded to the scene to check it out. The sales manager insisted something was not right and handed the suspect's credit report over to Frank. Upon looking a bit closer, Frank realized that despite the name and date of birth matching the suspect, the social security number was different from what the suspect's driver's license showed. Not sure exactly what was going on, Frank recognized that there was some type of fraud involved. He then instructed the officer to bring the suspect down to the police station for questioning. Once the suspect was in the interrogation room, Frank and Alex started to press the suspect about his intentions. Finally, when Frank accused the suspect of using someone else's social security number, he refuted the claim and stated that it was not a stolen social security number, it was just my CPN. Frank looked at Alex with a confused look, which was promptly returned. The two investigators excused themselves from the interrogation room. As they exited, Frank looked at Alex and asked, "CPN?" "You got me," Alex replied. Frank and Alex went to work Googling and YouTubing CPNs and credit privacy numbers until they had received a crash course on gaming the credit bureau system to obtain new credit identities. It was as if they had been living under a rock and someone just turned the lights on. They were not sure how. They had never even heard the term before, but it seemed to be going on right out in the open. When they returned to the interrogation room, the suspect proceeded to explain in detail how he had obtained his new credit profile under his real name but a false social, and how he got it to a 700 credit score in 3 months, and how he could buy whatever he wanted without having to pay it back. Here's how it works. First, let's define the players. You have the borrower, we'll call him Jimmy. You have the bank, the credit bureaus, think Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. You have the Social Security Administration, and you have state government. All these entities rely upon one another to make our financial system work. The bank wants to loan Jimmy money, but they have to answer two questions first. One, is this really Jimmy? And two, if it is Jimmy the kind of person that will pay us back eventually? To answer the first question, the bank relies on the identification provided by Jimmy, often a state-issued driver's license. The bank does its best to ensure it's legit, but they have no special access to confirm its validity. As for whether or not Jimmy is a good lending risk, the banks rely on the credit bureau rating, but the credit bureaus needed a way to tell the difference between this Jimmy and this Jimmy. Their solution was to use Jimmy's social security number as a sort of financial identification number, but credit bureaus have no special access to confirm the social security numbers they are provided actually belong to Jimmy. The real irony here is that the banks look to the credit bureaus for information on borrowers, but the credit bureaus get all of their borrower information from the banks. So the mere inquiry of a false identity by a bank creates the very record that bank will later use as confirmation of that identity's legitimacy. To be clear, The reason this happens is because neither the banks or the credit bureaus have direct access to confirm the data provided to them by their prospective clients. Though this is changing with the new electronic consent-based verification program initiated in 2019 by the SSA. So the synthetic identity workflow ends up looking like this. Bad guy gets a 9-digit number that has never been used to apply for credit and thus never prompted the credit bureaus to create a file. This is often why you hear of fraudsters targeting kids, not because they care about your child's identity, but because they can assume there is no current credit profile. The bad guy then submits his name or a fake name for which he has an ID paired with the made-up 9-digit Social Security number, or CPN, to the bank for a loan. The bank submits this info to the credit bureaus in order to see if a file exists, and they get back no record found. The bank then denies the loan. But then the credit bureaus view this inquiry as a new, previously unknown consumer. So they create a file associating the fraudster's name with the bogus Social Security number, or CPN. Now the credit profile is born. But if the bad guy wants this new financial identity to be worth anything, he has to jack up the credit score, and he doesn't have time to do it the old-fashioned way. Instead, he will rely on purchasing reporting history from bogus data furnishers who report false information to the credit bureaus, or by purchasing access to existing credit through renting time as an authorized user. Now that the fake credit profile has been created, it's time to go back to the bank with a new credit card or car loan application, then cash out. The bank is left thinking that it was just another default rather than an elaborate scheme to defraud.
So that's synthetic identities and CPNs. I'd love to hear more about your experiences. Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts of where this fraud is going. Is the Social Security Administration's effort to communicate with financial institutions going to be the death nail that we all hope for synthetic identities? And if so, where's the fraud going to go? Because it's never going to disappear. It's just going to come out in a different way in a new scheme. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Make sure you join us next week when we're going to take a look at business email compromise and let you know what you need to be on the lookout for and how these networks are able to exploit a simple thing like an email and turn it into hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars.